Hey, what's going on, guys? It is Gamer Man here, and welcome back to Steam and Steel. Today we are going to be checking out something quite interesting. We're going to be checking out two of the newest models in Steam and Steel. I believe they are the class K2. Let me just take a look here real quick. The class, let's see, K2. Yep, the K2. And I believe the H2. No, not the H2. We've already taken a look at the H2. Perhaps it is the... Which one is it? I know it's one of these ones. Ah, yes, the K1. So the J2, or the K2 and the K1 are the two we are going to be taking a look at today. The first one we're going to take a look at is none other than the K1. Now, the K1 is different in a few regards. The first big difference is the K1 is tri-cylinder. It has 3 cylinders. It is a 062 wheel arrangement. Not the most common thing I have ever seen in a wheel arrangement. The rear bogie is to hold up the bogie. The rear truck is designed to exclusively hold up the tender and the cab of the locomotive. This one is affectionately named Comet in the new purple scheme. So let's hop aboard here real quick and jump in the cab. Come on, hop in the cab. There we go. So first things first, the whistle. Pretty darn good whistle. I mean, it's not the worst in the world, but it is still a good whistle nonetheless. So let's go ahead and get the engine fired up. This might take a little bit, so we're going to cut to when it is fired up. Well, as the locomotive's firing up, I can talk about the locomotive itself. Now, there's been a noticeable change with this locomotive. Which one is it? The K2. It's 14991. It's pretty darn good for what it does. It is amazing. It's got a pretty darn heavy weight, and its max coal capacity is well worth it. There's even a bunch of brand new colors, so we do have this nice, awesome purple that it comes in. I do like the purple, but you can get it in these new reds, the oranges, things like that. You can get it in all kinds of colors, and I personally like it. I know there is a darker purple. Is there not a darker purple? Oh, you're joking. No. Okay, so you can go back and rebuy it in the same color. That's basically what you can do. But this locomotive is a tri-cylinder system, which means it has 3 cylinders. So if we go underneath the cab, or underneath the boiler, you can see the 3 sets of the Stevenson gear. I believe this is Stevenson. Yeah, you can see underneath the locomotive. And you can see they all move they coexist. They all move exactly in the same manner. Now, one thing I've noticed is that randomly, I think it's just my computer, I'm getting a bug where there's no chuff loop. And it's really odd and strange. See, I'm running the locomotive and there's no chuff sound. It's just really bizarre. I'm not going to worry about it because the chuff loop is not what we're focusing on. Today we're just focusing on the operation of the K. The chuff loop is incredible, though. It is a very, very well done chuff loop, and it sounds very good. If you go and play the game, you will actively hear that the chuffs are in sync to the cylinders. So you see how this cylinder is pressed all the way up against this piston. And if we move around here, you can see this one is also pressed all the way up against the piston. But if I go underneath, this one is all the way out. It is pushed all the way back. They're offset, which is really cool. It's a great feature. So if we drop the brakes here and get the engine moving, you can see that it picks up pace pretty quick. It is a fast-moving locomotive. If we bring the bar all the way down, it moves pretty darn quick, and yet at this rate, we're not using that much. We don't have that much steam. We do not have a lot of steam here. It also stops on a complete dime. It stops on a dime so fast. So we're going to sit here and we'll fire it up a little more until we're at max pressure, and we'll see what max pressure looks like. Alright, so apparently I figured out how to fix the problem with the audio. Just log out, log back in, and the audio comes back. So if I put the bar in full forward and you listen to the chuff loop, you will hear a distinct difference. It's got a higher chuff loop. It sounds a lot beefier. And if I bring the reverser down, it picks up pace a whole lot quicker, and I love that. I absolutely love that about this, and it stops on a dime. It stops so incredibly fast. Now, some people are going to get upset with me for the way I use the head code system on these engines, but I am a dirty American in some regards, and I prefer. There goes the safeties. I prefer to have the headlights on, mimicking an American locomotive, so all headlights are on and ready to move forward. Now, the other thing we're about to go and check out here is we're going to back up and go look at the new train cars. Also, the bar kind of sits around, I want to say, it sits about 6, 7 bar, give or take, and it is beef. It's got a lot of beef to it. So since the last video, I completely rebuilt a whole section of this yard. I totally rebuilt it because it was just an issue. I also realized I do not have the day-night cycle on. Alright, so we're going to come and check out these 2 new train cars here. These are the covered wagons and the new... Oh goodness, I think they're called hoppers? I think they're called the hoppers. Oh, open wagon. So there's the open wagon and then the covered van. So the one is a 14-ton open wagon. It's actually, according to the in-game weight, 7.9 tons. And then the 18-ton covered wagon, which is 8.1 tons. So I think it is actually supposed to be a point here, but then that wouldn't make sense for the 14-ton open wagon. The 14-ton open wagon is super darn useful. It is incredibly useful. It's got a lot of good work with it. It mainly is good for hauling your rum and your grain. That's its 2 big strong suits, along with cordwood. But really, it's not. It's a very mid car, especially for its price. It's a very mid car. But looking at the covered wagon, this blows away the old 20-ton or 11-ton vans. These are really, really good. They are. They're very good. They're like amazing. Oh, this is happening, and that's weird. I don't know why this is happening. One moment. My thing is stuck. Weird. Well, anyway, yeah, no, these are really cool. What is up here? This is odd. I don't usually have this problem. Okay, that's weird. My computer's been acting up, and it's been really odd and strange. But anywho, the 12-ton vans, they're good. They're still good. They still have their uses. They really do. In fact, I haven't scrapped my fleet of 6 of them sitting over in the distance. You can see them right behind the cattle cars. However, I sit here and I'm wondering, okay, well, this does the job of the 12-ton, but better. And yes, that is true. However, these are better for hauling your grains and your bigger ticket items. Copper ingots, it can do. It can do copper ingots, but it's more good for your boxed items, your items that are designated for your bags and your boxes, things like that. They're much better for that. And a fleet of 6 of them, oh goodness, they are unbelievably useful. And one of my favorite parts of the open wagons is this little balcony right off the back. So when you have a train and you're backing it up and you don't have a brake van with you, you could convert one of these into a shoving platform essentially and have someone ride on the back and push you along your way out the back. It is incredibly useful. But it's great. You may also notice that there's a new locomotive sitting over here. We'll get to that in a second because this is not really a new locomotive, but it's a new thing I've added. So yes, this locomotive is wondrous. But now that we've got steam under it, we'll try and get it up to maximum speed and see just how well it handles. So we'll close up the yard. We'll get kind of meandered over here. And it doesn't really matter which direction you go. You can just belt it and it will just take off. It's also really efficient on coal. Like, really efficient on coal burning. Right there's about top speed. And then we'll hit the brakes. Like I said, stops pretty darn fast. Also, you can see our little old reliable over there. My very first locomotive now has its own little museum track. But yeah, this is a great locomotive. The K1 is very, very good. But now we're going to move on to the K2. So I've decided to come in here to the roundhouse and set up the K2. The K2 is basically, it's an 060, which we already had the N-Class 060. Which, to me, is a great little yard locomotive. It's really good for what it does. But what we're looking at here is the K2, and the K2 is much more powerful than the N. Because if we go and look at the N-Class, which is an 060, it's got 25,000 horsepower. I'm assuming it's either horsepower or tractive effort, one of the two. But then you go and look at the K1, and it's 34.8. That's pretty good. You know, at a max speed of 34, this thing will book. It is a fast boy. It's internal cylinder, which is very interesting. We've had a lot of internal cylinder locomotives. In fact, I think most of them are internal cylinder. But this one is also really, really good. And I'm not going to bother firing it up, but we're at least going to take a look at it. But it's got a good whistle. And again, I've given it the triple axle tender, and yes, all of my locomotives are named. They have names. So, the K1 over here, you've got Comet, and here you have Alexander. So, you've got, each engine has a weird name, and all of them have names based on, you know, their purpose, their duty. So, for example, Pannier over here, that you can see off in the distance, is a guard engine. Samson's one of our strong goats. Patches over here is obviously named Patches because it has a red and blue body, hence the name. Big Red is obviously Big Red. Like, Big Red is obviously Big Red. Big John, Lucky Lady. Lucky Lady got named the way she did purely because she's engine number 13 on the line. And I felt like, haha, we're going to name it Lucky number 13, so it's going to be Lucky Lady. But Lucky Lady, if you look at her, I believe she's not a B. She's a B2, I think. Yeah, so she's a B2, but if you look at the B2, and then you look at the K1, they're about the same. They're not much different. The only difference is that the B2 has 32,466, and the K1 has 3434. So it's a little bit of a bump increase, but the boiler is about the same as the J's. I think it's the J's. Is it the J's? Yeah, the J's. It's about the same. But it's still a good locomotive. It really, really is. Does an excellent job. Now, what people were wondering is, what did I name my railroad? Because clearly, if all the locomotives have funny names, like, in fact, Decade over here is number 10, what did I name the railroad? Well, the subsidiary, the sister railroad, which is off in the distance and runs on its own little railroad, is the Rio Northern and Great Western, the RNG. Or, as the thing states, it's the RN and G, but that's just because the ampersand. So we'll put this engine away, put it into the shop, there we go. Put it away. We'll go and leave Alexander alone as well. There's now a total of technically 18 locomotives on the entirety of the railroad. A total of 18. In reality, in terms of proper numbering, there's only 17. And so that leads me to our next thing, which is our MOW locomotive. Oh, I also forgot to entirely mention Pink Lady, number 14. Pink Lady is an A0. Now, for the A0, like, good heavens, the A0 is a good little choo-choo. It's an adorable little dude with 11737. It's an adorable little dude. It's a tender engine, so you'll have to pick up a tender. And I would strongly recommend, because it's a smaller engine, pick up the 2-axle RSR tender. It's just a perfect little tender for this dude. But yes, Pink Lady is specifically named the Pink Lady because obviously it was supposed to be pink. Couldn't find a pink, so I went with a purple. But thought I'd bring that up real quick. This is a good little dude if you get it early game. Absolutely wonderful. Now, walking over here, you'll see that OR, or Old Reliable, is sitting over here on what appears to be a track that's just separated from the line. OR had to get moved. I love this little engine. This is your starting locomotive, and yes, this is still my original locomotive. My brother, Golden Fantasy, can attest that it is the first locomotive on the entire map. It is the one we have ran since day one. Now, it's on a museum track because it just doesn't have the oomph anymore. In early games, this beautiful class, which I believe is the Class C, is great. It's a good dude. It works. But with it only having 9769 pulling power, you're looking at an engine that is very good early game, but mid game it will start to struggle, and then late game you've got the issue. If you want to take a look at how I rank all of the locomotives, check out my ranked video in the description. I am going to give a ranking on those two at the end of the video, but for now, let's go look at MOW. Now, for those of you who are wondering, MOW stands for Maintenance of Way. It's something that American railroads, it's a slang term that describes basically the people that go out and maintain the railroad and what have you, things like that. But here, you can see Engine 0. Engine 0 is specifically labeled Engine 0 to not get it confused with any other engines on the roster. It is not an official locomotive. It is strictly for maintenance, wrecks, things like that. So if this engine comes out, it's for wrecks, it's for building track, it's for basically taking care of something. This engine goes out to go pick up a stranded locomotive. For example, if we had a locomotive, forbid that it ever happens, run out of coal, you would send the MOW train out, and the MOW train would eventually go out. They would couple they would stop where the engine is. They would couple the brake van to the dead locomotive, and they would tow it away. If it's like on a siding where it ran out of fuel, it basically would become a shunting operation, and it would get sandwiched in between the maintenance away locomotive and this brake van, which is how I would do it in my server, but other people might do it differently. And it would carry it all the way to the nearest coaling tower, and the nearest coaling tower would take the responsibility. And of course, you can see that this locomotive does not have a funny name. The Rio Pacific and Great Western, the RPG, is the name of the railroad. Now, why is it called that? Well, RPG, RNG, role-playing games, and random number generation. Yes, they're both based on, in fact, game references. So the RPG and the RNG run these types of locomotives, and This is now not the only railroad officially on the map. So I'm currently got my auto run on, which is kind of this thing that I figured out is kind of a cheat or a glitch. We are going to run all the way across the map to the secondary railroad. So the way that, and I'll explain it on the way there, the way I built this map was originally a form of narrow gauge style construction. Sure, it's all standard gauge, so you really don't get the luxury of saying, like, oh, it's narrow gauge ops. It is actually entirely based on narrow gauge operation. That's why there's not a lot of passing tracks. That's why there's not a lot of stuff that involves, moving large trains. It's all about moving smaller stuff. It's just the way it is. And so I designed it to be around a narrow gauge. Now, of course, it is standard gauge, and a lot of it has upgraded. A lot of tracks now have dual tracks, passing tracks, express lanes, things like that. Stuff that a normal railroad would have. But if you guys want to see and work on this railroad, you absolutely can. It will cost Roadbucks to get the game. I think it's like 250 Roadbucks to get the game, something like that. But if you pick this up and you guys are in my Discord server, there will be a Discord server set up coming up here soon, hopefully, to do op sessions on this map. That is the hope. The hope is to have op sessions running with at least 3, 4, 5 locomotives running all at one time. We'll have a dispatch. We'll have a way to basically make it fun, make it interesting, make it a working railroad. And we will just have to wait and see what happens. But I'm going to shut up now because we're almost to the secondary railroad, which will also have its own set of dispatch and rules. And there, off in the distance, I'm going to resume manual control. This is the second railroad's main hub, the yard. As you can see, we have some stuff waiting for moves. We have two sets of train cars, one filled with beams and one filled with lumber, awaiting use. Now you may also notice, wait a minute, gamer, there's a brake van sitting here that's yellow. It's the only brake van on the line. Why is that the case? Well, this railroad is not designed with its own rail cars in mind. It's designed to interchange. Allow me to show you what I mean. So right here, this is the main yard. And you can see the locomotives hiding in the shop. But if we go over to the tannery, over here, zoom over here real quick, you will all of a sudden notice that the lines merge. This line here, the one on the left, is the Rio and Pacific and Great Western. And the one right here in the middle of your screen, that is the Rio Northern and Great Western. These two are very different railroads, but this section here is known as interchange, which is giving players the ability, on my server at least, to interchange sets of cars. This one's a smaller interchange. This one's not meant to be a bigger interchange because it's less used. So it's not designed to be a massive interchange. You could probably fit a decent couple car train here, and these are more for your smaller trains, like maybe 4 or 3 cars, give or take. And this bigger one is meant for your 6 car train. So if you have a really big interchange and you happen to be at the tannery, this is where that big thing would go. But if we go out of the map here and immediately jump back across and go the other direction, up along the main line, you'll see the lumber mill here. It's a back-in lumber mill. You can't pull forward into this. You have to back into this lumber mill. And it does have some stuff so that if players do want to run the lumber mill, they can. But they follow the lumber mill track, and right here is what I consider the loop, the narrow gauge loop, which isn't really narrow gauge, but like I said, it's a loop. So the track loops around. But this bit over here is where the original hub used to be, is now a forest camp where you can store a couple cars. So this is an extra like end of track yard here. So this is another interesting spot along the railroad. And then if you go up along this bridge here and you follow it along, this is interchange. This is what I call not an interchange, but this is a connection line. This is specifically built with one purpose, to reach the major interchange. This is the farm interchange. All of the big trains can sit here. I have tested it. The 6-car trains can fit in all 3 of these bays. Actually, you know what? While I'm sitting here, I'm actually going to extend these bays out slightly. I will probably do that later because I don't want to botch this system up. But this farm is heavily used. And the way this interchange works is a train can come in, back down, move across the switches, and basically leave a train here. The brake vans come with us. The brake vans of the main line come with us, and I'm going to need more brake vans, providing that more people join the server, because everyone needs a brake van. But yeah, basically you come down here, and then the second railroad, which is this one, will come and collect the train and bring it to where it needs to be along the interchange loop. Now, what is this? This railroad is the Rio Northern and Great Western, the RNG. As you can see here, we have engine number 2, we have engine number 1, which for some odd reason keeps hashtagging. I don't know why it keeps doing this, but like every time I type in the name Rio Northern and Great, I wonder if it's the ampersand, and I wonder if it is the ampersand. But I don't think it is, because whenever I use the ampersand on the other cars, it works just fine. So if I go here, no, give me the tender, and replace it with the this one, confirm. See, it doesn't let me do it with this one. And I don't know why. It's very weird, but it's not a big deal. Oopsies. Unedited, by the way, can you tell? See, that's fine. That works and doesn't bother me none. But then if I go over here to this locomotive, right? It doesn't work. I don't get it. So now it's not working at all, and I don't understand. Hang on a second. Okay, I don't know why, but for some reason now that's working. But on the tender, it's fine. The ampersand works just fine. But here you can see engine 1, engine 2, and of course the MOW locomotive. The MOW locomotive on this railroad is a little different because it is a smaller railroad, so it doesn't need that big of a locomotive for maintenance of way. And this engine will automatically connect up to the brake van, and same systems apply. If something goes wrong on this little branch line, this engine will go out and help. However, this one also serves an additional purpose. It is the strongest locomotive on the RNG. And that is because it is I believe it is the G class. If I remember correctly, it is a G class. Yeah, it's a G class. 29809. Compare that to the N class, which we have on there, which is 2548. And I believe it is not an N2, but it's a... Oh, what was it? Was it an F class? No, it wasn't an F class. And it definitely wasn't an E class. What was it that we have up there? Oh, what is it? Ah, here it is. The A1. Yeah, so there it is. Sorry, this is taking me a bit, and it's a bit odd, but I apologize. But yes, these two locomotives, not very big on the powerful scale, but they're still good. They're still great locomotives. And so this railroad would require 3 people to operate tops. Maybe a dispatcher to be like, hey, there's stuff at interchange 1 or interchange 2, but not a big deal. And also the tenders are a lot smaller over here because you're running less of a distance. You're not going as far. And so the little roundhouse here just takes care of this. You have your maintenance shed, you have your coaling tower, and you have your minute yard for the 2 local train sets. Now, these 2 local train sets are usually your starter sets of cars, so having them over here on this little railroad just makes them useful. And these can get interchanged out with the bigger railroad, the RPG, and you can bring them down, move them, but as soon as they get unloaded, unless they're bringing cargo back for any of the systems along here, which is really only the farm and I want to say the lumber mill. So the only cars that you could bring back loaded are these cars here, the ones with beams on them. You could bring these back, and that's about it. Otherwise, these cars get interchanged. They get dropped off at wherever they need lumber or beams, and then the cars return to the interchange, come back here, and they continue the work of just moving wood to the lumber mill. And that's really it. But that is the map. That's all of the new stuff going on. And my god, do I love this game. And if you guys want to join me, please let me know in the description, in the comment section down below. If you want to join me, I will get a Discord thing set up so if we can do op sessions if you're interested. And you can run your own locomotives. There'll be a set of rules. I'll get it all put together. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you like this video and you want to see more videos like this, hit the like button down below, hit the subscribe button down below, hit the notification button to become part of the gamer team. Check out my merch down below. Also be sure to check out my Patreon and my editor's page, Violet. Go check her stuff out because she does a lot of my editing and stuff. But I appreciate all the support. I'll catch you next time.